16. Breaking and Entering. Somewhere in France, October 18th, 1986. Full moon. Good dog, Roxy, Kenneth told the hound. Now, how do we get in? One more jump? Roxy stood up and pointed toward the fortified compound with her nose, wagging her tail. Kenneth observed the ostentatious show of force before him. Pairs of armed guards patrolled the grounds in regular intervals. On the roof, anti-aircraft artillery scanned the skies. From their side of the veil, Kenneth could see lines of electric blue energy in angular geometric patterns. Powerful wards meant to prevent spiritual intrusion glimmered and flickered across the building's ornate facade. Thin filaments of energy stretched out to guard the wall and gate. This was a fact that the red cat sitting on top of the gatepost ignored entirely. Okay, now how the hell did you get here before us? Kenneth asked the feline with a puzzled stare. The cat just yawned at him and flicked his ears in amusement. He settled down comfortably to watch the goings-on. Unlike everything else visible in the mortal realm, the cat was in full color and sharp focus to Kenneth's vision. He shook his head in wonderment and turned his attention back to the problem of getting in. Kenneth knew that the guards could not see him, even sitting astride a huge black horse at their gates, because of the separation created by approaching from the other side of the astral veil. But that did not get them through those iron gates. Can we make the jump straight to it? Kenneth asked the dog. Roxy dropped her head and tucked her tail in response, half closing her bright eyes. When she wagged her tail and woofed, Kenneth knew he had his answer. Guess not, huh? Okay, so now what? Maybe we break in? The polite thing to do would be to knock, a matter-of-fact voice said from behind them. All three of them were startled. Who the hell? Kenneth said as he turned around. Since they were supposed to be concealed from mortal sight as part of the rules of the wild hunt, he knew it would have to be someone also on their side of the veil. The light brightened to a brilliant white, and a winged figure stepped through the light into their presence. The one who stood before them bore only a faint resemblance to the romanticized depictions of angels. Stocky and clad in full armor, he bore a large sword and a slight frown. 3 sets of enormous, graceful, arched wing frames framed him, declaring his identity. He exuded an air of power and authority. He glared at Kenneth sternly. Not remotely. Oh, yeah, sorry, Kenneth said. The Archangel Michael nodded. Considering that we are kind of technically breaking and entering, knocking on the door may not be in our best interest, Kenneth responded. The Spear of Destiny is a prize that men have sought after for 2 millennia now. What makes you any more worthy of holding it than they? The Archangel challenged. That's a loaded question, Kenneth answered. But there's that whole saving the world thing. We needed to stop Loki from getting his hands on the Spear of Chaos. Kenneth blinked in the brilliant light surrounding the Archangel. Besides, I'll give it back. Ruling the world would be way too much paperwork, and I hate paperwork. You will put it back where you find it? The Archangel inquired leadingly. Yeah, well, maybe. No, not exactly. Kenneth stumbled over his answer. One thing he was good at was quick thinking on his feet. I have a better idea. It doesn't belong in the hands of men. Go on, the Archangel encouraged. So, my thinking is we just make it disappear, Kenneth responded. And how do you plan on doing that? The Archangel asked. Why are you asking me questions you already know answers to? Kenneth asked in return. You may not ignore the dangers for all involved in that action, the Archangel declared. The consequences would be an unbalancing of power the world over, and as you are currently in Flesh Earthside, neither you nor your friends have the foresight required to understand all repercussions, good or bad, from taking it from one seat of world power. That is for our Heavenly Father to decide, he declared with finality. Let God give it to whoever he wants to. But considering the state the world is already in, it doesn't need to stay here. I'm betting you happen to agree, or you wouldn't be here. And we wouldn't have gotten this far already, the teen pointed out. Perhaps, but you still have not answered my question, the Archangel pointed out. By making everybody think they already have it when they don't, Kenneth stated. To hold the spear of destiny is a heavy responsibility, and you can find yourself driven to extremes by light as well as darkness. Either way leads to madness, Michael told him. Not to point out the painfully obvious or anything, but I'm standing here arguing with an archangel, trying to get my hands on the Spear of Destiny so that I can destroy the Spear of Chaos and prevent the end of the world. I'd say I've already crossed the madness and extremes category. Besides, you already know everything that can be known about me in the first place. I think we can both agree that I am not the poster child for mental stability, Kenneth pointed out. The Archangel's lip twitched in amusement. Agreed. Kenneth dismounted from Bucephalus and went to one knee. With God as my witness, when this is done, I promise to place the Spear of Destiny where no one will ever find it, even if they are looking right at it. You're going to find yourself with an overwhelming number of enemies, the Archangel said. Yeah, I know. But other than being the poster child for the mentally unstable, the other thing I seem to be really good at is pissing people off. Kenneth grinned unrepentantly. Just as long as it's not the wrong people, the Archangel said pointedly. Yeah, well, there is that. Kenneth pushed his hair back from his face and nodded agreement. The Archangel Michael laid his hand on top of Kenneth's head. Warrior to warrior, Michael said, I will hold you to your vow. I will also want this back. He took off his sword and placed it in Kenneth's hand when he stood. Eldritch fire burned along the blade in bright shifting colors. You would give me your sword? Kenneth was shocked into stillness. He thought after all he'd already been through, nothing could surprise him. You will need it where you are going, the Archangel said firmly, and also handed him the baldric. Kenneth caught his breath and felt his muscles tighten with the threat that implied. Yep, now I'm really screwed, he said. You can always change your mind or turn back, the Archangel reminded him. Yeah, that whole free will thing is a bitch. But I'm already here, so let's do it, Kenneth replied. The Spear of Chaos is already in the hands of the enemy, the Archangel warned him. It has been taken since you left the earthly realm. You must recover it before it reaches the depths of Loki's domain. The Archangel Michael turned to the wrought iron gates and touched them. A pulse of light flashed, and the runes rearranged themselves throughout the property. You may enter, General Hasset, he told Kenneth formally, and stepped back through the bright light. Go with the blessing of our Father. See ya, brother, Kenneth answered, and then waved, but Michael was already gone. With the protections triggered, the barriers no longer held them back. The three of them easily and silently slipped inside, with Roxy leading the way as she followed her nose to their goal. Ahead of them was a large, empty, grassy area which would have provided no cover to anyone just walking in. However, since Kenneth, Bucephalus, and Roxy were incorporeally operating on the other side of the veil, Kenneth believed no one would see them. However, halfway across the yard, he discovered that the usual rules were only partially suspended in their case. A heavily armed guard was blissfully unaware of their passage and could not see the dog. He tripped over Roxy and fell flat on his face. In the compound guard room, unusual movement on the security cameras caught the attention of the officer on duty. The captain punched his radio.
"What the hell is going on out there?"
he demanded. Sorry, sir. I tripped over something, crackled the answer.
"That was some trip, Parks," the captain replied. "There's nothing there but flat ground. Well, our distinguished guests are here. It is no time to be playing around. If it happens again, there'll be hell to pay. Got it?"
Yes, sir, the hapless guard answered. He gazed intently at the ground around him, puzzled. He barely caught the edge of the officer's next exclamation. Sir?
Son of a bitch!
Zooming and backing off the camera didn't bring the fuzzy spots of moving light into better focus. There were 3 of them, 1 large and 2 smaller ones, coasting unhindered toward the building. One was the general shape and size of a man.
Ghosts? In broad daylight?
He switched to infrared, blinked, and shook his head to try to clear his eyes. He had heard of cameras being able to pick up spirits in certain lighting conditions, but he'd never seen it himself. In his position, he could afford no mistakes.
"Parks, turn around and tell me what you see,"
the captain barked the order into his radio. Nothing, sir, but the empty yard, the guard the officer addressed answered. Although what I tripped over felt big and solid, there's nothing. The captain considered for a moment. He refused to call an alarm for ghosts. A decorated military veteran didn't believe in such things. He dismissed it as a trick of the light. Nevertheless, he switched one of the cameras to infrared and made sure the rest were recording as he sat back and watched the invisible man, horse, and dog walk right up to the building. When the spots on the camera reached the door, he suddenly got an uncomfortable feeling in his gut. A buzzer sounded on his desk.
"Shit!"
The captain jumped up.
"That's not ghosts! Somebody's got some kind of personal cloaking device!"
Seconds later, he hit the radio alert.
"Hey, Wing! We got possible intruders! Mason, I need you and Langford to check out the alert on door A7. Handle it quietly, but see it's handled."
He glared at the camera, unable to leave his post to see for himself. Sir, we've done a thorough search and turned up nothing," Mason radioed back to the guardroom several minutes later. "It's most likely a malfunction."
"Fine. I'll call maintenance," the captain stated.
Puzzled, he still hovered over the cameras. He could no longer see any anomaly present.
Trick of the light."
He shrugged and shook himself as a chill made his hair rise on end. He was halfway to reaching for his phone when he witnessed his man suddenly go flying off his feet and slam hard into a wall as he was walking past a set of guarded double doors. Langford had been following closely behind. While he wasn't hit by his partner, he also fell over something invisible in the hallway, much like the unlucky guard earlier. In a state of grim dread, the officer smacked the emergency button.
"What the hell?" he started yelling. "Someone or something has made it into the building! I want every security officer in A to get off your asses to the round room! No!"
The captain cursed as he saw the 2 guards posted outside the doors to the round room also go down as if something had hold of them. How were they supposed to fight an invisible enemy? Given what he knew was inside that room, he struggled not to hyperventilate. He and his team would be lucky not to leave in body bags tonight if the compound's owner found out. Bucephalus didn't quite look contrite after double-barrel kicking the guard who had run into his hindquarters. Kenneth wiped his hands after disabling the second guard. "I can't let you have all the fun," Kenneth whispered to his horse. They can't see us, but at least we can still affect our environment. This is a good thing, methinks. It reminds me of when we took down Ulfer and brought the astral and earth planes together to take out his body and soul at the same time. The rules here seem to be similar. Roxy jumped up on the door and scratched it, then turned to look at Kenneth expectantly. Is this it? He asked her. The dog gave a sharp bark of acknowledgment. Alrighty then, let's get what we came for, Kenneth said. He opened the double doors just as another group of guards rounded the corner with their guns drawn. They pulled up short when they didn't see anything but their comrades on the floor unconscious, but breathing, and the doors opening on their own. In the confusion, Kenneth simply strolled into the room. The round room was aptly named. It was deeply carpeted in plush burgundy red with gold accents on the chairs and mahogany-paneled walls. A skull and crossbones flag hung on one wall with flags of nations, photographs of world leaders, and CEOs past and present. The central feature of the room, however, is what drew the eye. A glass case containing a single item was sitting in the middle of a round stone table that almost filled the room. Around the table, filling plush chairs, were the presidents and dignitaries who provided the power behind the thrones and elected governments the world over. A former president of the United States stood leaning over the table with his finger pointed at a red-faced man wearing white robes and a headscarf. "We agreed to your request, Mr. President," the man replied to the American. "It is not our fault your free press is making news of our arms for hostages deal. Perhaps if you put those dogs on a leash and execute your American personnel with loose lips, you can put a stop to this nonsense." "We don't do that in America," the president declared. "We have constitutional protection of our press." "You mean you don't let anyone know you do it? At least in Iran, we don't hide behind party politics and lie about it." The man stopped and considered his next words. "Then I would suggest that to save face, prosecute your military commander. Put the blame there and take the attention away from anyone in this group or President Reagan." Leaning over the table, about to reply, the American was the first to notice something amiss when the clasp fell open on the glass case in front of him. Long the assurance of the group's world domination, the Spear of Destiny was their prized possession. Confiscated at the end of World War II from the Nazis after Hitler's fight with the Rothschild kin, it had been brought here and placed under lock and key for many generations. "Sorry, gentlemen, to steal your prize," Kenneth said, "but you clearly do not have the wisdom to carry this." Kenneth didn't feel sorry at all. But hey, it sounded good, he laughed to himself. He opened the case carefully in front of all the shocked faces in the room. Of all the things that could bring them to their feet, the Spear of Destiny vanishing into thin air from its resting place was one of them. The expected shouting started. Kenneth grinned.
"Which of you is responsible for this?"
the American demanded.
"You thief!"
the Iranian accused him. The mood in the room went downhill from there, with everyone shouting. Kenneth jumped off the table, quickly mounted Bucephalus, and with Roxy following, they ran out into the dusk. The security officers in the meeting room were left in disarray behind them. The lone watcher of the cameras watched them go until they disappeared through the compound's iron gates. A bright light flashed briefly and was gone, along with the Spear of Destiny. A warm wind blew over the fields of summer, ruffling the high grass. Barely perceptible, the fabric of the world rippled. For the first time in a millennium, mortals had crossed the veil. Kibichet caught her breath. The amount of power required to bring such a thing into being was absurd. Foreboding spread frost over her heart. Over the ages, she had learned to trust these feelings. Something was going to go badly wrong, though she did not yet know what. The light of two moons shone down from above. Beautiful blue trumpet-shaped flowers hung from the vines draped over silver birch trees, nourishing rather than strangling them. This was Kibachet's place, the garden that she and her father had coaxed to life from nothing. Tiamori's large golden eyes watched her anxiously as he waited for some sort of result from her use of far sight. The panther-like spirit shifted uncomfortably, trying to remove pressure from the stump of his missing paw, which was slowly regenerating. An ambush had ended their joint hunt for the Spear of Chaos. Only Tiamori's quick thinking and reflexes had kept a Hydra from taking Kibachet's head off, though not without cost to himself. Kibachet's feline ears twitched as the excited baying of hunting hounds echoed across her mindscape. She had been sitting here for what seemed like hours, but may have been days, watching all the trouble her chosen soul sib could get herself into. There were so many twists and turns of possibility. The truth of destiny and free will being what it was, neither held full domination. She frowned as she rose from her meditative stance. Visions and farsight would not suffice for this.
"Lost in thought, my daughter?"
Anubis inquired as he entered Kibachet's favorite meditation garden beside the temple, barely sparing a glance for the dark spirit which lay beside her.
"Aye, my father,"
Kibachet nodded, turning to face him.
"You've been worrying,"
Anubis observed.
"So have you,"
she told him. Anubis's rich chuckle filled the air.
"Perhaps, but idle worrying will not do anyone any good."
A faint smile curled the edges of Kibachet's mouth.
"That never seems to stop either of us."
Her expression turned serious again.
"I do not want this to end with sacrifice. Far too much has already been lost to the Demoni and the Dreadlord's mad ambition."
Anubis sighed out in a long exhale, centering himself before responding.
"Your chosen sister and her bonded will do as they must, as they always have. Nothing is yet certain, my daughter."
"They are strong, and the fate favors them.
But there is darkness tugging at the edges of my vision, something hidden from my sight." "You fear the outcome?"
It was not a question. She turned, looking into the twilit forest that she had shaped to remind her of her devastated homeland.
"Yes."
Kibachet sighed deeply and turned to Spirit of Sorrow, who had been listening.
"I thank you for your aid, Tiamori,"
she said. She returned to the spirit's side under Anubis's watchful gaze.
"Quite honestly, the situation is looking bleak. I cannot in good conscience ask more of you than you have already given."
"Lady," Tiamori began formally,
"you have given far more than a thing like me would have ever thought to ask. You could ask a great deal more of me, and still it would not be enough."
Kibachet's brows furrowed as she tried to puzzle out what the spirit meant by his words. She almost felt like crying when she realized that she was probably the closest thing to a friend that Tiamori had ever encountered, even though their acquaintance began with her trying to kill him. Anubis bent down on one knee and looked into Tiamori's eyes.
"You are far more than you believe yourself to be, dear child. We do not reckon debt amongst friends, and make no mistake."
He paused.
"A friend is what my daughter considers you to be."
Tiamori caught the psychic scent of tears unshed as Kibachet tried to hide the sorrow that her startled realization had caused. Dumbfounded, Tiamori struggled for the words to respond to Anubis.
"To be a daemon is to fight for food and power, to kill anything that gets in the way. There is nothing else. I don't know. I haven't."
Tiamori's throat closed so he couldn't speak.
"I understand.
But it doesn't have to be that way, Anubis told him gently. Tiamori sat up straighter. What do you mean? His golden eyes reflected the glow of Anubis's fiery intensity. He could feel the energy crackle around him as he was being read. While your exterior is dark, you are not completely so. Even if you were, redemption and grace are universally available to even the demoni. The difference being receiving it or not is choice. It is a gift, not an affliction, and must be accepted, or it shall not be received. Kibichet spoke up. You don't realize it, but you made your choice long before you met me. You chose how to sustain yourself, and instead of leaving a trail of death behind, you aided those you could. I didn't need to kill them, but I did take from them. And isn't stealing things supposed to be wrong? Tiamori asked plaintively. Kibichet laughed brightly. Oh, darling, that's exactly my point. A daemon wouldn't care. So, then, what am I? Tiamori asked with a puzzled frown. Kibichet answered with a mischievous grin. You are my friend. We can figure the rest out later. She grew more serious. But time is short, I'm afraid. We must prepare for war. We failed to find the Spear of Chaos, so war is inevitable with that loose in the worlds. But you, my friend, it will be some time before you are again able for battle. She stopped while he thought through what she said. When he nodded agreement, she continued. Because of this, I don't think it will remain safe for you here. Too many powers will see the color of your coat, and not your core. You may rest here for a time, though, and I will leave it to you to decide when you are ready to go. I'm not going to throw you out as if I don't have any more use for you. You deserve better than that. Tiamori inclined his head in assent. I understand. Anubis and Kibichet returned to the temple. Tiamori calmly watched them as they left him alone in the garden.